Cool. Into Liverpool. I watched the highlights. Liverpool doing Liverpool things.
Yeah, I didn't think they were hugely impressive in this one. Inter had a lot of territory and had a lot of the ball, especially in the first half. There were a few kind of near misses. They didn't have a shot on target, which looks bad.
Yeah.
They did rattle the crossbar.
They did. Yes, they did.
Hakan Çalhanoğlu, nearly coming very close to opening the scoring, which would have changed the game. I thought they set up in a really smart way. Essentially, they were pretty bold in the way they tried to play out from goal kicks. I wasn't expecting that. I thought they would just pump the ball along to Dzeko and try and win the knockdowns.
Yeah.
But instead, they played 3-5-2, and they were. This is sort of hard to explain. The back three was.
Please dumb it down for the rest of us.
All right, so it's hard to explain without the visual, I should say. They were sort of going to a 4 in the first phase when they're playing out from the goal kick. So they were spreading wide, and Skriniar, the right centre back, was going all the way into like a right back position. Bastoni, the same on the left-hand side. And then Brozovic was dropping in to give them an extra option to play out against the Liverpool press.
Yeah.
And
Pivot player.
Yeah, exactly. That guy who slots into the back line. And then joins the midfield when it gets further forward.
Churches League, we learned that.
Well, that's the role I used to play.
Yeah.
Split centre backs. It was a 4-3-3. It's a bit different, but
also, we went into Milan.
No, not quite.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite that sophisticated. But I thought that was interesting. Also, the way that the two wide centre backs, left and right, followed Mane and Salah. Excuse me. All the way up the pitch, like they were really tightly marking those two players. And trying to prevent them from turning and facing goal. So they clearly had done a lot of preparation and strategy for this game, and it could have paid off. They don't have the talent level of Liverpool.
No.
But I thought it was a smart setup, and on another night, if that Çalhanoğlu shot goes in, or one of those
different story,
those crosses meets Dzeko's head from Perisic, we could have had a different result.
What does this say about the golfing class then of the two leagues? Because obviously the Premier League is, widely watched, a lot of money. Serie A, obviously, this show alone, sometimes we don't really cover it. When you watch that game, what does that suggest to you as obviously the two, great representations from each league, but to the quality and the depth? Yeah,
that was the big takeaway for me, was when Liverpool went to their bench. They had just so much more quality they could turn to. Inter we're bringing on like a washed up Alexis Sanchez. They had Arturo Vidal starting the game because Barella was suspended, I think. So he had to wind back the clock. He was actually pretty good, to be fair. But, they were relying on some guys that would have been shipped off out the door, and have been, in fact, in the case of Sanchez a long time ago. Whereas when Liverpool went to their bench, they replaced Harvey Elliott, who I thought, good young player, I guess, but coming back from injury, he just wasn't up to the pace of the game. So you could say, all right, well, the kid's not playing that well. Let's bring on Naby Keita and Jordan Henderson and our new however many £1 million signing, Luis Diaz. And they swapped Jota with Firmino. And, Firmino ends up scoring the goal. A really brilliant header.
Really
good
header.
That's such a hard skill. Usually when you're going for a flick on it in your post, you're trying to pick out someone at the back stick, not score yourself. It was an astonishing header.
And not much, and I was watching that header, I was like, how did he do that? It wasn't much action of the flick backward. He kind of just let it glide across him.
Across his hairdo.
Yeah. It was, really, really good header. Good header.
That's the, typical glance. It was almost like, do you remember when Chicharito always used to manage to head the ball backwards?
But his had more arch. He was this was kind of like...
Yeah.
And so you come to the rondo for us to break down the different kind of headers.
How would you know? You never went up for one.
No, I never. I was scared.
You just
CT is real.
Stomped on the ground and tried to psych out the player.
And most of the time it worked. I'm a baller. What do you want me to do? So...
He's playing centre half as well. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was so good.
So... they just had so much more quality to turn to off their bench, and it ended up deciding the game in the last 20 minutes or so. And I just don't see Inter coming back from 2.
Tough task, big task.
Yeah, it's at Anfield. It's not going to happen. So I think that tie is unfortunately over. But I thought Inter were close to bridging the gap through the smart way they were coached.
Yeah.
So I don't think they did anything wrong. I don't think they really could have done much more other than a little bit of better execution in the final third. And, maybe they could ask their Chinese owners for a bit more money so they could sign like someone like Luis Diaz to come off the bench.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough to cope with that kind of disparity between the two benches, essentially, especially in a game that's so high intensity now that substitutions become so important.
Yeah.
To the extent that I don't know if you saw this piece, but it was breaking down in the Premier League, Southampton, how in nearly every game that they're in it with a chance, a player goes down with an injury between the 60th and 70th minutes so that all of their players can go to the sideline and get Gatorade and
there you
those
go.
like gels and stuff, like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
high
yeah,
glucose gels and things like that
Yeah.
to see them through the rest of the match. I mean, it's kind of a conspiracy theory, but the data was pretty compelling, and that shows you the physical toll that's put on players now.
You talked about the difference in depth and quality was apparent in that game. How can Serie A kind of bridge that gap as a whole?
And it's tough, Premier League is such a juggernaut in terms of TV numbers and finances and so forth. I think probably better English language coverage of the league would help. And they've lent into the social media a little bit, like Roma leading the way, with their kind of meme accounts and things. I think it does move the needle a little bit in terms of how many fans are willing to buy a shirt or,
Well, I was at Ultra Football the other day, and AS Roma released like a Chinese New Year drop of like training kits with like Lunar New Year designs and stuff like that. Tapping into different aspects of culture now, which is for me was interesting because I never thought that a club like AS Roma would do that.
Yeah, and Inter had the Year of the Tiger or whatever it is. Kit that they put together.
Yeah, and they did that Montclair collaboration, and they're doing stuff, so.
And Napoli brings out a different Diego Maradona memorial
Napoli's
jersey.
Like 11 kits, don't they? They have like a Halloween edition.
Yeah, so they're trying to move the needle in those like small ways. But I think fundamentally you just need the kind of media apparatus around the league, not just in the Italian-speaking world, but in the English-speaking world, to give it traction, and that's hard. You need the sort of, and it's a spectrum, right, from like quality, long-read tactical breakdowns on the Athletic to kind of clickbait content on sort of Sport Bible. It's a whole spectrum of getting people invested with their attention and then their money, and that's a battle for eyeballs that all of the leagues are facing. I mean, it's pretty slim pickings in the A-League at the moment when you look at the TV ratings. So I don't think anyone's quite solved that problem. And beyond getting external investment.
If any A-League club, right?
Oh, God.
just about wants to do a Lunar New Year drop, I'm your man. I'm your guy. Just hit me up.
It's a bit late now, isn't it?
Yeah, next year. It's called forward thinking.
Okay.
Okay? Right. This guy doesn't get it. He wants your money now. I'm talking.
Don't go with Victory. Their kits are horrendous. God, like
I actually like Western United.
They've got nice merch.
They've got nice merch.
It's Kappa.
And no cap.
Hey, you were going to buy an Adelaide United jersey.
I was going to. And so then here's the thing. So like, sorry to turn my back to all of you. I'm trying to be inclusive of the conversation here, but then now I need to talk to him real quick. If it's fire, you have to buy it.
Right.
If it's nice, right? And I think it's good for the culture. Like, look at like the kit collectors that I met when I was in Brisbane. Some of them have clubs they support, but they still appreciated design and what like certain kits mean. And I think something like AS Roma's Chinese New Year drop, or A-League having like really nicely designed kits, I think is a step forward, because you have to build a story around the product, and you have to do that. I think in Asia, the J League does that really well. K League is pretty good too, and I think we can look abroad and see what people are doing in terms of building a bigger narrative around the leagues. But that's just my own little
and I think also with this stuff, it's kind of marginal gains until you get to the TV rights packages, which is the main source of income from, outside of your match day revenue and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not sure the way that they're like packaging TV rights, the quality of the coverage. Like the Premier League looks different. Like when you switch it on, the colours are really vivid.
Oh.
The camera angles are amazing.
It's delightful.
They've got more camera angles than I think the Serie A broadcasts have. The broadcasting positions are like closer to the action.
It's Christmas.
Like Serie A, a lot of the time, you switch it on and it looks like football from a slightly different era because it's very like top down in a lot of the stadiums.
You know what it's like? It's like when you play FIFA, right? And then your friend goes, I prefer to play this camera angle. And then they go into the settings and they change it. And that angle is shit ass.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
It seems like less action-packed because you're like a little bit more zoomed out. And pitch is a little bit hazy because everyone's letting off flares and random firecrackers in the stands and stuff, which I like.
I don't mind that.
But, yeah, it doesn't seem as quite as professionally packaged and compelling as the way the Premier League has been able to market itself and broadcast itself. It's so clean and slick. And I think that does impact people's perceptions of the quality of play, which I don't think there's a huge disparity between the two, only really at the very top end.
Well, you'll be proud because since we started doing the show together, I've actually been keeping up with the Serie A a little bit.
Oh, nice.
Just been watching highlights on YouTube and stuff like that just to be across it. And you're right, the quality is better. But I think the way that it's produced and then shown to the rest of the world matters because if that's the first touch point, people are going to make their judgments based on that.
Yeah. And also, you also have to look at who's holding the rights as well. And you look at the way, for example, here in Australia, the way Optus are cutting their highlights and the way they're doing their social media to sell the product, I think is super compelling. And it gets attention. Sometimes it's a bit lowbrow, kind of clickbait, and they're always going Liverpool, Manchester United, Ronaldo all the time. But it works for them, clearly.
It's all part of a bigger strategy.
Yeah, and the way that Serie A is marketed in Australia is complete afterthought. No one even bought the rights to the league and secured it until I think a day or two before the season started this year. And it ended up being beIN Sport again. And like who subscribes to beIN Sport? It's kind of a off-Broadway production a little bit. Some of them are on KO and Foxtel channels, but only like the certain main channels, so you can't see all the games. It just creates a buffer between the audience and what they might want to see. And I don't think they're doing enough outside of the actually showing the games to compel people to subscribe. So I think Serie A maybe needs to look a little bit more, I guess, interrogatively at who holds the rights in these big English-speaking markets, or not even English-speaking, throughout the world, and whether they're doing a good enough job of then marketing Serie A to those people. Because if you get more people wanting to watch it, there will be more people who wants to buy the rights, and then you'll get more money from the TV sales. It's tough. You need a global strategy to be able to compete with the Premier League, but that's what the Premier League have been doing all these years, and the other leagues need to catch up.
So if the Serie A is watching, Josh is your guy to lead this global dominance.
The only way the Serie A would be watching is if we put like some unauthorized footage in this video and we get a DCMA claim.
Yeah.